Aloha, Namaste, Salamat Siang, Assalamu Alaikum, Tashi Delek, Annyeonghaseyo, Guten Tag, Konnichiwa, Ni Hao, Hola, Xin Chao, Sawadika, Kumusta, Hello. In this wonderful month of interfaith celebrations, I greet you. I love celebrations. This 17th Sakyadhita International Conference on Buddhist Women is such an amazing celebration. Others celebrated this month include December 6th, the end of the Jewish Hanukkah holiday, December 8th, Rohatsu, Buddhist Enlightenment Day, December 21, the solstice, celebrated by Wiccans and pagans honoring the rebirth of the sun as the winter-born king, December 25th, Christian Christmas, and today, December 26th, Zarathustra Diso, the death of the prophet Zarathustra, the founder of the Zoroastrians, and the beginning of Kwanzaa, a week-long celebration of African American history. Of course, there's also Diwali, the festival of lights in the Hindu tradition, and the Muslim Eid al-Fitr, a time to celebrate the faith, be charitable, and visit family. Malaysia itself is host to so many rich and vibrant cultural and religious festivals. How many of these interfaith celebrations have you experienced? Do you know about? How many might be happening right in your neighborhood? I would like to begin with a little story. As the founder of the Interfaith program I now direct had passed away earlier this year. One day he asked me, with a gentle smile on his face, if I wanted to hear the story of how he was inspired to become a better Buddhist after meeting a good Catholic. He began, I was about 21 years old when I was sent for military training during World War II. It was wintertime in Minnesota. I noticed one of my comrades regularly getting up earlier than roll call and leaving the barracks with his shoes in his hands. One day I asked him where he went every morning. He said, come and see. The next day, I followed him in the dark across a snow-covered bridge. He entered into a little church. After the service, he walked back across the fields of snow and reported for duty. I was so impressed by his example, sacrifice of sleep and devotion to the bitter cold, that I made a personal vow that if I were to return home alive from the war, I would devote myself to become a practicing Buddhist. Retired Bishop Yoshiaki Fujitani of Hawaii's Honpa Hongwanji went on to become one of Hawaii's living treasures. I like this story because it is one of an individual becoming a better person in one's own faith tradition through the example and dedication of another. Likewise, when I visited the Philippines several years after Typhoon Haiyan had majorly destroyed the town of Tacloban, I was so surprised and my heart so warmed with gratitude to find that the Catholic Cathedral of Santo Niño there was helped in its rebuilding by the Taiwan-based Tzu Chi Foundation, providing that sincere help transcends religious borders. Sincere help transcends religious borders. Likewise, in 2011, Tzu Chi also helped complete the building of a Muslim mosque for the students in the Jakarta school, that the students could be at ease in their worship and meditating. A view from the other side. In the Hawaiian language, we have a phrase, Aloha kekahi, I kekahi, which means, love one another as I have loved you. Who is this I that does the loving? In Hawaiiana, it is I, the Creator. In Christianity, it is Jesus. In Islam, it is Allah. In Hinduism, it may be any one of the 300 million deities. In Buddhism, it may be the example of Amitabha, the Buddha of light, Chenrezig, or in relation to us, it may be the personal standard through which we live and breathe and make a difference in the world. I greet you today with this phrase, Aloha kekahi, I kekahi. Can I hear you say it? Aloha kekahi, I kekahi. As I feel it is so appropriate for our gathering. In all traditions of the world, the meeting in the heart is key to our collectively coming home as individual yet interconnected beings. If we really want to relieve the suffering in the world, we need to love all sentient beings to the point where there's no longer duality between you and I, a white robe, black, gray, brown, pink, maroon, saffron, or any other color under the rainbow. Because we are here to love. We are here to transcend boundaries. I would like to take you on a little journey back in time to the year 2006, when many of us may have been gathered at Sao Seng Lom Puchong Exhibition Center in Kuala Lumpur for the 9th Sakyadhita International Conference on Buddhist women in a global multicultural community. Did you notice the smiles? Feel the joy? Touch the peace? Does your heart feel warm with such beautiful memories? It is such an honor to be with you again, even if virtually. However, the conference did not start off very well for me. I had wondered why some of the local participants were kind of aloof, not quite so welcoming of me. After I made my observations known to Karma-Lakshe Soma, she found out that some Christian groups had been placing reading material at the steps of local temples that called the Buddhist devils. They even caused damage to some temples and harassed the people. The Buddhists were right to be concerned and suspect of Christians, as they were being hurt by them. I myself was appalled to hear the news. A Catholic would not do something like that. Am I not good, kind, and loving? But I was being hurt by the wrongful perception of me as a Christian. Venerable Karma-Lakshe Soma quickly moved to open up a Buddhist-Christian dialogue where we were able to address some of the fears, anger, and suspicions of those of other faiths. I was able to explain the difference between Catholic Christians and Christians that might not be following the heart of their founder, Jesus. After holding the conversations to create understanding, there were more smiles. How many religious traditions today have forgotten what their religion is really about? They have forgotten the golden rule of love for every single life, be we white-skinned, black, brown, yellow, green, or blue. On the tour after the conference, Venerable Jetsuna Tenzin Palmo also saved me from feeling uncomfortable as I unknowingly took a seat on the bus next to her and was told to move to the back as the seat was reserved for monastics. Venerable Jetsuna said, I was also a monastic and told me to stay put. How many times might we have mistakenly judged or made presumptions about another due to our lack of knowledge of others? When the Buddha held up the flower in the flower sermon, it encompassed all, From the worms we might feel itchy looking at, to the baby panda we simply adore, to the untamed tiger reflect off of the untamed parts of ourselves. Tathata, suchness. Buddhism and interfaith. How well do I know and understand my own beliefs and practices, or even those of other Buddhist traditions? I remember one year being invited to a Buddha Day celebration sponsored by the Japanese Buddhists in our community. As I sat by one of the Chinese nuns, I watched her eyes roll as lunch was served. Steak, fish, potatoes, and broccoli. We were vegetarians. Perhaps an oversight by the organizational planners to the differences held within varying Buddhist communities. Look around you. Do you know whom among you might be following a different diet as allowed by their practice of the Buddhist faith or due to availability of food in their homeland? Sakyadhita organizers have always been most sensitive and considerate to offer the lunch meal early for those who need to eat before noon, because Sakyadhita is about knowing others and caring for others. So let's take a look here. What does the Buddhist look like?
Hi, I'm Hyland. Welcome back to the Buddha Beat. Today we're going to be asking people what they think a Buddhist looks like. Here we go. What do you think a Buddhist looks like?
I mean, stereotypically, I would think more of an Asian person.
What do you think a Buddhist looks like? That's a good question.
A Buddhist? Like the Hindu guys?
I don't know. I never stopped to think about that before.
I believe a Buddhist look like, I guess he, probably like this tall, brown skin, bald head, and wear like the orange brown robes.
For me, he looks like a monk.
Wearing the yellow robes and bald, pretty much.
I really don't have an image of what a Buddhist would look like.
Like robe type, like kind of bright oranges.
What do you think a Buddhist looks like?
I don't really know.
Would you be surprised if I told you I was a Buddhist?
Yeah,
Why would you be surprised?
you don't look like one.
So you wouldn't be surprised at all if I told you I was a Buddhist?
Would you be surprised if I told you I was a Buddhist?
No.
There we go.
No, I wouldn't, because it doesn't really determine on how you look, because that's not what things are based on.
Yes, very.
Why would you be surprised?
Well, kind of, I just didn't picture you as one, but that's pretty cool.
So would you be surprised if I told you I was a Buddhist?
No.
No.
I guess they just project it to look that way, but you never know.
No, not according to the hat.
What do you think a Buddhist looks like?
Like you and I.
All right. Thank you very much.
A Buddha comes from within, so he could look like anything. It's up to you to understand and know a Buddha from what comes from inside, not the appearance.
Sometimes we might hold stereotypes of others, make judgments about them without knowing them. How many of you might have asked, a Catholic sister? What is she doing giving the Keynote address? Don't worry, I asked the same question. But hello, as one who really believes in Sakyadhita and used to carry the bags of oranges up the temple steps for my great-grandmother, I was invited to share the view from the other side. Adapting to host cultures while providing a way to relieve the suffering in the world, early Buddhism was able to transcend the boundaries of geography, culture, and ethnicity. Today, Buddhists compose about 7% of the Earth's population worldwide. In the United States, the largest Buddhist population can be found in Hawaii, where it is the second largest religion following Christianity. With such a numerous presence, one might then expect a generous amount of visible contribution to society and marked social impact as consistent with the teachings of the Buddha. However, the evidence is waning. Why? At the beginning of the COVID-19 pandemic in Hawaii last year, for example, as the economy shut down, the demand for free food assistance grew. This was helped by massive food pickup drive-thrus sponsored by the city and other organizations. For the senior population, public food boxes were made available for pickup at certain city parks and open registered charitable sites, such as Protestant, Catholic, and other Christian churches closer to their residences. But one might wonder why none of the publicly listed sites was a Buddhist one. Could it be that due to the strong ethnocentrism of a myriad of Hawaii's Buddhists, there was a lack of religious and cultural literacy to be able to reach out beyond boundaries to build collaborative relationships? There is no doubt that faith traditions and other groups were working hard to make sure their own were taken care of. But what about those who were non-practicing or not registered in the tradition? Would Buddha or Jesus close their eyes to a stranger in need? Would Buddha or Jesus let them starve? Like in the Buddhist parable of the poisoned arrow, would a first responder ask you what faith you belong to before treating you? Or might one of the reasons for the non-participation of Buddhist temples as hosting sites be due to a dichotomy between generational understanding, where the energy of younger members are not tapped, steered, or empowered to engage and lead as responsive global citizens? And us, elders, we may be too tired, not think about it, comfortable in our own faith bubbles, afraid of others taking control and we being put on the side, losing our job? Or, aloha ke kahi, ike kahi, let us love one another, beckons us to really love all. Inclusion, language, culture, values, environment. So where do we begin to become more engaged and real women of the faith traditions we belong to as followers of the Buddha? How are you fostering a sense of inclusion in our neighborhoods, widening the circles of compassion? In Hawaii, the number of Buddhist temples are many and diverse. Some serve as cultural centers for their members. With this in mind, members that immigrated or relocated to the islands have been able to find support in raising their children in this American society according to their cultural values, or at least in exposing them to what their temple experience with the practices and festivities was like in their homeland, as we caught a glimpse of in the beginning of this presentation. Unlike in big cities, for example, San Francisco, where there is a Chinatown, Japantown, Italiantown, Mission District, etc., Hawaii has a multitude of branches for each of its temples. The Korean temples, Japanese, Chinese, Vietnamese, Thai, Laotian, Tibetan, and Burmese coexisting in 597 square miles. There were over 70 temples. Many of these temples are bonded by the native languages spoke in the study of the Dharma. How does this affect the younger, more modernized generation? Their concerns are real, and unfortunately, it may not be the temple they go to find their guidance or answers. Meanwhile, we who have gone through our own challenges specific to our generation's experiences in life may think of the concerns of the youth as small stuff or as not so important. With language barriers, there also comes cultural nuances. For example, when I was in Taiwan and once asked permission to go out with my American classmate friend, I did not realize my superior's frown was due to the tight-knitness of family and society, perceived as, why did I need to go out with others when I was already provided with everything in the community? I find it fascinating to study about other cultures and other faiths. For example, if you were to see any of these symbols, would you know what they point to? What religious tradition might be behind them? Sometimes our misperceptions might arise from uninformed personal biases that lead to feelings and attitudes about other people based on characteristics such as race, ethnicity, age, and appearance, and thus to exclusion and sometimes missed opportunities. If the Buddha and Jesus were to have met, would they have held any biases towards each other? I don't think so, as we can see from the Japanese comic Saint Young Men. In the convent, I was trained by a generation of nuns that were the founders and leaders of the organization. With a 30 to 40 age gap, I learned all they taught me very well. However, with the younger generation of religious sisters, sometimes talk about the olds can be heard, or the olds not understanding, or the olds not giving them a chance to be creative, to do things their way, to prove themselves. With each generation, mentoring for the future should be our compassionate goal. Have you ever thought of giving your younger temple members a blank piece of paper and asking them to share their vision of the future? Historically, as Buddhism expanded across seas and continents, it adapted to the local customs, as represented by all of you here carrying on the rich legacy. However, how are we continuing to adapt and change to our ever-changing environments as we keep the central message of the Buddha constant? Adaptation and change leading to societal collaboration. In Hawaii, a number of the temples are experiencing the decline of membership, even the closure of temples similar to the closing of Catholic churches or schools. Why? How can it be that the faith handed down from generation to generation has lost its value in society? I will not say don't worry is a common trend across America or even in other countries, where the youth are not just interested anymore in religion. As my university students say, they believe in the Big Bang. This is where adaptation and change come in as a lead into societal collaboration. Bishop Jukyo Rose's temple, Konganji, for example, is famous not only for its dedication to Jizo Bodhisattva, but for its openness to help people from all walks of life. In 2019, before the pandemic broke out, she held a special children's blessing, writing on her website the invitation: the public of all faiths and religions are welcome to participate in this special blessing. How many of our services, aside from Wesak, where non-temple members might be invited to participate in the bathing of the Buddha or to Bon Adori, are open to the public? Although she is also in her 90s, Aishin Irene Matsumoto of Palolo Kanon Temple continues to keep her doors open to guests from other traditions, other Buddhist traditions, university students, and ministers in the Catholic Church, giving some of those seeking ordination as deacons their first experience of meeting with the Buddhists. Because who knows when they later minister in hospitals, as I have, that they might run into non-practicing Buddhists who, reaching the end of their lives, do need help finding a Buddhist minister. And who would have ever thought that Karma Lakshay Soma would retire from teaching? I do not think it is actually possible for such a master educator and Buddhist leader as she is, but yes, she's been transitioning out of campus academia to the building up of the La'i Peace Center to serve all of humankind on the north shore of Oahu Island. So what can you do? Some suggestions. Be aware of the holidays and holy days of others. Be curious of what certain attire, symbols, linguistics might mean. Smile and say hi. Ask to understand. Ask too, whether it be of help visioning or just how to make nice graphics on your flyer, your younger members for help. Invite into your sacred space. Host an interfaith open house. Welcome the stranger. Learn. Hold interfaith study sessions with your members. Be global. Keep up with the news and gather ideas from your communities on what needs need to be met. Volunteer. For example, at Catholic Charities. Just because the word Catholic is in the name of the organization, it actually serves all people, especially those with the greatest need, regardless of their faith or culture. Or volunteer in a project such as Project Dana, which has grown into an interfaith coalition of 30 or more churches and temples throughout Hawaii, training volunteers and caregivers for the elderly. Check with your local government to see what needs are out there as the pandemic continues, and organize your members to help. Or, if you are bold, open your doors like Tzu Chi, which has moved beyond its own boundaries to offer humanitarian aid across the globe, inspiring those of other cultures and faiths to simply be good. Any step we take is a step forward. No action is too small. We build on experience. After attending my first Sakyadhita conference in Nepal in 2000, I remember receiving an email that a bus carrying some of the Vietnamese nuns met an accident and the nuns were in the hospital. Oh my heart went out to them. I did not know how to do offerings as the Buddhists do, but I believed in the power of societal collaboration. I called my friends in the Catholic Church and in the Sufi tekkes, lodges, to pray for them. In my own personal prayer to the Sacred Heart of Jesus, I found myself wrapping each of them up in like a burrito in God's heart, asking for their healing and well-being. Suffering did not belong to the Buddhists alone. We all carried it together. As His Holiness the 14th Dalai Lama teaches, with the wish to free all beings, I go to Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha until the attainment of full enlightenment. May we be sure to include other Buddhists, Hebrews, Hindus, Sikhs, Jains, Zoroastrians, Muslims, Christians, and those of other religious traditions or none in our altruistic ideal. As we seek to effect greater visible change and ripples of care through growing our interfaith collaborations for the benefit of all sentient beings and for our own happiness. Aloha ke kahi, I ke kahi. Let us love one another as I have loved you. Aloha.